What makes live shows so special is that interaction between the viewer and the host and the guest, whether it's through the chat or the live phone calls. This connection is created because people are allowed to share their experiences, their feelings, their thoughts. And this makes for a beautiful dynamic of energy that's connecting people in so many different ways. And that's how we learn. That's the best way we can help one another, is by connecting at such deep levels. This is Dela Fotoohi, the host of Dela's Voice, hoping to spark your soul.
Hello and welcome to another Dela's Voice Sunday live talk show. Today we're talking about substance use and mental health. If you have had any struggle yourself with substance use and substance abuse, you know that taking that road to sobriety, making that decision to change your life around is a difficult one. And it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. Today, we are going to speak to a young woman who is doing exactly that. But before we go there, we have a lot to talk about. I'll be right back. Stay with me. Welcome back. Marijuana use and our mental health. If you've listened to me talk before, then you know that I've had my share of experience with using marijuana as a way to cope with my mental health issues. And it was tough. And I know what it takes to quit because I did that. And I know how difficult it is to make that decision when you use that substance as a crutch in life to cope with everything. But it gets a lot harder when you actually are struggling with incredible diagnosis of mental health problems that create an immense struggle in your life. A lot of people who have been diagnosed or undiagnosed with mental health issues use marijuana, cannabis, in dealing and coping with their mental health. And so, without really knowing what that substance does to our brain and therefore to our mental health, we can live like I did for 10 years using the drug and thinking that this is actually helping me. Well, the more we know about this, the more we seek information, the more we understand, and the more we're able to help the people around us who are going through this struggle in their lives. I want to make sure I say hello to you before we start. If you're here watching this live, I want to thank you. If you're watching this through YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're trying to increase the numbers so that we can get more people watching. And if you're watching this through Facebook, don't forget to give us a like, comment, and share this so that we can spread this message with those who need it. You just never know who might need this information. And make sure through the show, leave us comments, questions, your experience, if you had any. And I'll be sure to read those. And we may actually open up the phone lines so you can call. We'll get there. On October 17, 2018, cannabis became legal in all provinces and territories for adults 18 and over, making Canada just the second country to legalize recreational use of the drug. The Cannabis Act was introduced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. Just a few months before the legalization, Government of Canada published this on their website in March of 2018 about mental health effects of cannabis. I'm quoting, "In some people, cannabis use increases the risk of developing mental illness such as psychosis or schizophrenia, especially those who start using cannabis at a young age, use cannabis frequently, daily or almost every day, or have a personal or family history of psychosis and or schizophrenia." They continue, "Frequent use of cannabis has also been associated with an increased risk of suicide, depression, anxiety disorders. There is evidence to suggest that combining tobacco with cannabis can increase the strength of some psychoactive effects, the risk of poor mental health outcomes, including addiction." So, question comes to why? Why was this legalized with all this information? Hear this again, same site. Health effects on our youth. Research shows that the brain is not fully developed until around age of 25. So youth are especially vulnerable to the effects of cannabis. It's crazy because their brain has not yet fully developed. The THC in the cannabis affects the same biological system in the brain that directs brain development. Cannabis use has been associated with increased risk of harms when it is frequent, when it continues over time, when it begins early in life, and some harms are not fully reversible. It's really, really important for you, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a coach, or other trusted adults, to be ready to talk with our youth about drugs, because the information is out there. Um, if we're aware, we can make others aware. Here's some statistics for you. It's crazy. An estimated 16.3% of Canadians aged 18 to 24 now report near daily cannabis use. This number has increased 65% since it was legalized. Emergency departments visits and hospitalizations due to cannabis in Canada are also up 8% between 2019 and 2022. 2020, sorry, between 2019 and 2020. I'm going to give you the right statistics here. A new report says cannabis has contributed 43.5 billion to Canada's gross domestic product and 13.3 billion to Ontario's since recreational pot was legalized back in October of 2018. 1 in 3 who use cannabis will develop a problem with their use. It's also estimated that 1 in 11, that's 9%, of those who use cannabis will develop an addiction to it. If you've ever smoked pot and you've been around people who smoke pot, they will tell you, marijuana is not addictive. Well, There is proof that it is. I lived proof that it is. This is statistic rises to about 1 in 6, which is 17% for people who started using cannabis as a teenager. So if you've started smoking pot when you were a teenager, chances are um, your chances of becoming addicted to it is higher. So for some of you, you're asking, what the heck is marijuana? So just a little information on this. Marijuana is the dried leaves and flowers of the cannabis plant. The stronger form of the drug include high potency strains known as sinsemilla or hashish or hash for short. There are more than 500 chemicals in marijuana. The THC chemical in the marijuana is responsible for many of the drug's psychotropic, which means mind altering effects. It's the chemical that distorts how the mind perceives the world. In other words, THC is what makes a person high. The amount of THC in marijuana has increased over the past few years. Can you believe this? The average THC content in marijuana was less than 4%. It's now about 15%. That's more than 3 times. And it's much higher in the oils and the extracts that people are using. Scientists don't even know really how this increase in potency means for a person's what it means for a person's health. They don't know. Some people adjust how they consume marijuana because it's now higher potency. They, compensate in other ways so that they can adjust. But there have been reports of people seeking help in emergency rooms with symptoms, including nervousness, shaking, and psychosis. And for those who don't know what psychosis means, is having false thoughts or seeing or hearing things that aren't there. There are so many ways people are using marijuana. If you're a parent and you're you're worried about your teenager, you may want to hear what are some ways you want to educate yourself, right? You want to educate yourself. um People are using marijuana in different forms. They smoke it like a hand-rolled cigarette, and they're called joints. They inhale the smoke using a bong, or they inhale vapors using devices. And you've probably seen the vaporizers that use marijuana extract in liquid form. And there's, those drinking teas or the edibles in form of cookies and cakes or candy. Um, then there is the synthetic marijuana, dangerous stuff. This is laboratory made um, and very strong, much stronger, and very dangerous. This can cause overdose deaths. So what happens to our brain when marijuana enters our body? Um, so the high or the intoxication effects of marijuana is the result of alterations that happen in the brain chemistry. Marijuana acts primarily on cannabinoid receptors in the brain. These are receptors that are in our brain. Okay, we naturally produce substances that bind to these receptors, and these substances are called endocannabinoids. Marijuana contains a chemical called THC, which exogenously, which means from the outside, binds with cannabinoid receptors. This then leads to a psychological experience of being high. It's really, really important to know that this drug also acts on other mood regulating neurotransmitters called dopamine. Um, there are those of us who are more sensitive. Okay, so those who are sensitive to higher levels of neurotransmitter dopamine or already have higher levels can experience aggression, physical agitation, anxiety, panic, and types of depression, mania, delusions, hallucinations, and paranoia. Cool, huh? The brain changes caused by intoxication are often mistakenly thought to be temporary and only chemical in nature. This is really, really important to know that research indicates, however, that marijuana use also negatively impacts brain structure. For example, if you use marijuana once per week, it's been associated with altered size and shape of brain structures, specifically the nucleus accumbens and amygdala. These are part of the brain responsible for regulating motivation and emotion. And so, if if you've had experience, I know for me it was like that. I had all these dreams and aspirations that I wanted to achieve, and the moment I smoked that first puff, all of it was gone. No more motivation was left. Another brain structure important in learning and memory is the hippocampus. And then the hippocampus, it also appears in the research that um, goes through structural alterations after marijuana use. This part is really, really scary. It's not known if any of these effects on brain structure can be reversed. So, my take on this is the sooner you give it up, the better it is. I'm just going to take a moment and take a look at the comments and make sure that I say hi to you and see how you're doing and where you are with this information. I want to make sure to say hello to my friends Baha, Aaron from Stroke TV Media, uh, Tamuris from Scotland, thank you, Frida, my mama, um, Ozzy, thank you, Betty, Patty Naz, Katie, um, Raha, my girl Deborah, and Sarah. Thank you so much. This topic is really, really close to my heart because I struggled with it, and so I can never get enough of talking about this because I I want to bring this out, this information. A lot of people don't believe it, but if anything happens from today's talk, I want you to be a little curious and go and do the research. You know what happens when we're stuck in a mind in a mind state in an opinion. We rarely go and look for something that is going to oppose our own opinion, and that's where we get stuck because we believe what we believe to be true. And it's only by opening our mind to the opposing proof, the opposing research, the opposing opinions, the opposing information that we can learn. So that's my hope today. Um, there's a website called mentalhealth.net. Here, they're looking at marijuana addiction in teens. Research shows marijuana addiction in teens. Notice the word addiction, please. Marijuana addiction in teens causes poor educational achievement. Teen marijuana use is associated with lower grades and test scores, less likelihood of attending college, and higher high school dropout. It's been associated with poor peer and partner relationships in later life. It's associated with cognitive impairment. A decline in IQ has been found in chronic users who began use in their teens and continued into adulthood. An average loss of 8 IQ points from childhood to midlife has been reported. Addiction. So there's been research and proof that onset of marijuana use in the teens has been linked to later addiction to marijuana and other substances. Psychiatric problems. Teen use of marijuana is associated with higher rates of psychosis in adult life. Those who have used by age 18 are 2 to 4 times more likely to receive a diagnosis of schizophrenia later in life. Also, research shows a correlation between repeated teen use and depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and personality disorder. I think I've made my case. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of information to show that marijuana use is not as innocent as some people may make it seem. I struggled with this. I lost a good 10 years of my life to the abuse. And I don't want anyone else to lose out on life. Next, I have a young woman here who will be sharing her lived with experience with the effects of marijuana, also living with mental health disorders. Last year, we had her on Dela's Voice. She was so brave, and she talked about her mental health, and she also admitted that she was using marijuana to cope with her mental health issues. This year, she messaged me and she said she is giving up marijuana and she wants to come back and talk about that. I am so honored to know this brave young woman. As we bring her on, please shower her with love, and let's see what she's got to say. Here's a little introduction. Zoey Raffay is a brave young woman who has been experiencing mental health struggles since she was 14 years old. She's been diagnosed with eating disorder, borderline personality disorder, psychosis, major depressive disorder, anxiety, OCD, and PTSD. Last year, we interviewed Zoey Raffay on Dela's Voice, speaking on her struggles with mental health. This year, she's back once again, this time to talk about and share her experience and the effects of marijuana use on mental health, a subject that is rarely talked about. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome this brave young woman, Zoey Raffay, author, speaker, and mental health advocate on Dela's Voice.
Hi.
Hi, Zoey. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. I'm so happy you're here today.
I'm very honored to be on your show again.
Oh, sweetheart. So you wanted to be here today.
Yeah.
Why?
To bring knowledge and show people what marijuana can actually do to your mental health. Because I never considered it as an addictive substance until recently. I've considered it as a dependency drug. So what that would mean was like that you couldn't get addicted to it and blah, 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 blah.
Of course.
So once I stopped smoking, I got withdrawal symptoms and I'm like, I'm addicted to weed. So I wanted to bring awareness to that.
Thank you so much. You know how I feel about this. Because I've lived this experience, and I know that a lot of times we put our head in the sand, right? And we pretend that what we believe is the truth.
Yeah.
And so tell me why you decided to give it up.
Well, I had a hard time holding a knife, to be honest, because of my psychosis. And I was starting to see faces again. And like, it was really struggling my psychosis. So I called up my psychiatrist and I was like, what do I do? I'm not too sure what to do because the THC levels were like maybe 25% that I was smoking. So like, he told me to stop it indefinitely and it will stop all my problems.
Okay.
And ever since I cut down, like, I haven't had any problems. I just use it for my anxiety when I need to. But other than that, I don't smoke it.
When did you first start using marijuana?
September of 2020. I actually, this was before all the pot stores opened in Aurelia. I went to a bong store and the owner gave me a joint. And that was the very first time that I smoked weed. And that's what got me hooked.
What was it that got you hooked? What did you get from it?
It was the high. I liked feeling numb because it made my mental health like melt away and I didn't feel a thing.
And I think a lot of people can agree with you. That's exactly why we use substances. Marijuana, just one, but I mean, alcohol is another one. You know, we use that and a lot of other addictions. I think we use it because it makes us numb. You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, ever since this whole legalization, I know that they say, oh, it's illegal for those 18 and over. How hard is it to get pot if you're not 18?
Honestly, it's pretty easy if you go on third-party websites because sometimes Canada Post will just drop it off and not ask for signatures or anything. So you can lie about your age. So it's very easy for younger people to get it, especially if you know the website.
And it's funny. It's not funny. It's scary, but it's funny at the same time. What do you think that legalizing pot was a good idea? Good idea?
No, but I don't think it was at all. I was never for pot. It was never anything that I thought I would ever do. And I don't think it's a good idea that Justin Trudeau legalized it. But like, it affects younger people's mental health and it just makes it worse. And if what you said in the beginning in the intro was true, then why would he legalize it?
My question exactly. Well, do you know there's a lot of money that is gained from this?
Yeah.
Right? As you heard, 43 billion.
Well, here in Angus, they have 4 pot shops in
Mhm.
Angus alone. So like that's crazy because one, Angus is a small town. Two, you shouldn't be pushing weed on younger people like that, especially when it can cause mental health issues. You know what I mean?
Knowing what you know, Zoe, that marijuana affects your mental health, how will you use this information?
Well, quitting it for sure, because it just made everything worse. It made my meds go up. It just made everything worse. And yeah, I think that me getting off of it will help me in the long run, because I want to go back to school. I want to hold a job, and I can't do that when I'm smoking weed all the time.
Do you know a lot of teens who smoke pot?
No, I don't know any teenagers that do.
Okay. Okay. And so where I used to have a flower shop, and the flower shop was in a plaza, and there was a high school right behind the plaza. And I used to see all these teens smoke pot in the front of the shop, and this was before it was all legal. But they used to hide it. They would like go in a corner and smoke, and they were afraid to be seen.
Well, that's actually funny because I had an incident where a ex-friend of mine asked me to go smoke a bong in the forest across from the school when I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And so what I was getting at was, after it became legal, the same people who used to hide in a corner now just smoked it in plain sight.
yeah.
And so it just became it kind of became well, it's my right.
Yeah.
Right. And so why do you think that young people smoke pot? What is it? What does it do for them? What does it give them?
Well, honestly, I didn't start smoking until I was 20 years of age. So, I would think they do it just to be cool.
To
But
be
some people
cool.
might actually do it just for their mental health. So it really depends on the person. You know what I mean?
I feel like because we don't have the right information, right? And because when you smoke pot, like you said, it makes you numb. It gets rid of those feelings, right? Those bad feelings that you have. Um, y- you smoke it because you feel like it's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Right. So thinking back at your experience when you started smoking pot, um, what kind of bad feelings was it numbing for you? If you could be like, if you could give us a little bit of insight into what it was doing for you.
Well, I struggle with, borderline personality disorder, psychosis, OCD, PTSD, what's depression, major depressive disorder. And it took away my suicidal thoughts. It took away my psychosis at the time. I just didn't hear voices. I didn't see anything happening. I didn't have the fear of people out to get me. Like, that's why I started smoking, and that's what it did to me.
So during those times when you were smoking, you weren't having those suicidal thoughts anymore. You weren't hearing
At the beginning, but it slowly started to get worse. I'd say in April of 2021. That's when I was first hospitalized. Well, not first, but that's when I was hospitalized for the first time in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when everything started up again. But
Why
then I
was
just started smoking more weed to numb the pain. And I was smoking up to 6 grams a day.
I think that's a lot.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you, why were you hospitalized?
I was wanting to attempt suicide.
Why, Zoe?
I was just tired of life. Where I was living, I was depressed. It just wasn't a healthy environment at all.
Zoe, was this before or after I interviewed you?
Think after.
Okay. So life must have been really hard for you.
Yeah.
What was causing all that pain?
Well, my ex-best friend and I didn't really I mirrored her. It's part of my borderline personality disorder. So I mirrored her. I took up on her language. I did everything she did. I wanted everything she wanted. Like, it was bad. I mirrored her to the point that our relationship was getting toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't take it.
So you did you attempt to commit suicide?
No, the last time I attempted was back in August.
Okay. This past August?
Yeah.
What happened? Could you tell us?
I was just feeling really suicidal, a lot of overwhelming feelings because my ex-best friend and I got into a fight and we were name calling each other and everything, and it was bad. It just got very overwhelming, all the thoughts and the feelings about it, that I just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Mm-hmm. So you thought of taking your own life and to end the pain?
Yeah.
So you weren't successful, thank God. I'm so glad that didn't happen. What was going through your mind when you were at the hospital?
Well, I wish that they wouldn't save me, but the hospital that I went to was just bad. I went to RVH, and they...
I'm not sure if we could say that.
Oh,
I don't know. No, that's
but
okay.
anyways, they treated me really badly, and I just didn't get much from the hospitalization, as I was there for 7 days, and they just kept me in a room.
Mm-hmm. What were you looking to get there?
Help. I was looking to get hopefully into DBT. I was hopefully looking to get into different programs, but the psychiatrist I saw wasn't that helpful and just kind of sent me home.
So you've been living with all sorts of mental health struggles, and it breaks my heart. But it seems like this is what's happening in Canada. Anyways, I'm not sure with other countries, but you're suffering from this mental health, and then you go to the hospital because that's where you go if you're not feeling well.
Yeah.
And so there's no help because right? And so give me some of your experience. How many times have you been hospitalized over the years? Any, like, do you have a
My psychiatrist told me, because I asked him, he told me back in 2020 I was hospitalized 6 times. And then 2021, I believe I was hospitalized 6 times, I think.
So each time you went to the hospital, was it for a specific reason, or was it because you did you go yourself, or did they take you, or
Sometimes an ambulance was called. Sometimes I would walk to the hospital myself, and sometimes I would just take pills and
try to end it?
yeah.
So you go to the hospital and you're asking for help, and what do they do there? Like, do they give you drugs to calm you down?
No. What they do is they give you to a crisis worker, and you talk to them about how you're feeling, and then they'll assess you, see if you're safe to go home or not. But when I was in the hospital back in August, I overdosed, and the psychiatrist, the very first question she asked me was, "Are you safe to go home?" And I'm like, "What?"
Hmm.
So
They they want you to go home because this is a revolving door. I've heard this statement so many times, Zoe. The hospitals are a revolving door. The system is flawed. There's nothing they can do. They keep patients with mental health go in the hospital in order to get help. They don't get any help. They just get sent home once they are deemed to be stable.
Yeah.
And this vicious circle keeps happening because the right help is not there.
Yeah.
So you go home. Do you actually have support?
I have my mom and my grandma here. They're very supportive. And I have my cat. She's very supportive too.
The pet.
And then I have my boyfriend who is phenomenal. Like, he is amazing. He has been with me since I quit weed, and he's been through the whole path, the whole anxiety, panic attacks, everything. He's just phenomenal.
He gets it.
Yeah. He understands.
When you finally decided to give up pot, were you able to?
No, I went 3 weeks without it, and then I had a massive panic attack, and I smoked some just to get the anxiety away.
Okay. So it took it away.
Yeah.
And then what?
I just had bad feeling, like regret after doing it, because I was 3 weeks sober. And that's the first time that I've been 3 weeks sober in a year and a half.
I so get you, Zoe. I so get you. I so understand, because it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Giving up pot is people say, "Oh, it's not addictive." Yeah, and that's what I kept telling myself. Every night that I smoked pot, I would say to myself, I'm going to quit. This is the last time. And then the next day would come, and all these bad feelings and emotions will come, and then I'd want another high because that just numbed me.
Yeah.
So I get it. So, okay. So you went with 3 weeks without pot. How were you feeling? Tell me about that.
I had a lot of withdrawal symptoms. I was barely eating. I had a lot of anxiety. I had some depression, some suicidal thoughts. But I was able to push past through it without going to the hospital, without doing anything. It was bad, but it got better.
How did they get better? Tell me.
The withdrawal symptoms went away, and I could actually hold a knife without thinking about hurting myself. I could actually not see faces anymore, and like everything kind of went back to quote unquote normal.
Is that during those 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're sober, these thoughts come, and then you kind of, what were you using as a coping mechanism to get through those thoughts?
Well, I have extra anxiety medication that I take. So sometimes that helps. Sometimes I'll go for a walk, but that's about it.
Okay.
I don't have many coping mechanisms other than weed.
Okay. And so this is another one of those issues, isn't it? Because we're not given other coping skills. And it's just easier. Oh, here's some pot, smoke it, and you'll feel much better. Yeah, but for how long, right?
Yeah.
For how long will I feel better? And then there comes a time when you actually have to deal with those emotions. And I think for me, that's what happened, is when I decided that this is not going to work for me. Like, I can't keep using this to numb my feelings. I need to be able to find other coping mechanisms. So some of the things I found were really helpful for me were breathing through those tough times. When I breathe deeply, I calm down. And so I had to do that, like, all the time. There'd be times when, it was like someone was, nagging at me, go light up, go light up. And I really had to resist those temptations, and it was hard. So, so now, are you at the moment smoking pot?
Yes, but just for my anxiety and
Okay.
panic attacks.
So when you say for my anxiety, what's that like? What's that trigger for you?
Overthinking, because I struggle with BPD and I overthink a lot, and more than what the average person would. And then I freak out, like, majorly. And then that's when I need the bomb.
So explain to me what that's like. That's bipolar personality disorder. Is that
Borderline.
borderline? Sorry, borderline personality disorder. What is that like?
It's a lot to deal with. You mirror people. You don't have a sense of who you are. It's all black and white thinking. There's no good, no bad. It's just like, and there's no middle. I mean, there's no middle. It's just good or bad. That's what I meant.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's either you hate someone or you love someone.
Mm-hmm. Could you
Um,
love and hate the same person at different times?
I don't know. I've never really experienced that, but like with my ex-best friend, I loved her and then immediately turned to hate.
Mhm.
So, and there was no reversing that.
Okay. Okay. And do you ever question yourself?
Sometimes. Sometimes I wonder why I have to go through this and why I have to deal with it.
But when those thoughts come, like let's say you say you hate it, or you either hate it or you love it.
Mhm.
Do you ever question that? Do you ever question that thinking style?
Yes, all the time. Because
Mhm.
there should be a happy medium in there as well. There shouldn't just be yes or no. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There should be a happy medium, which I can't seem to find.
Mm. Um, what's something that helps you tremendously cope
Um,
other than weed?
my boyfriend helps me cope a lot.
Okay.
He calms me down. I call him, he calms me down, and yeah, he helps me out a lot.
Okay. Is he always available?
Yes.
Okay. So what if one day he's not available?
Then I would probably go for a walk.
That's a good plan B.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really important to have plan A and plan B and plan C, right? Um, the fact that you're here today, I mean, just shows how much courage you have, and how the fact that you're showing up here talking about this with so much honesty means that you're not hiding behind anything. W- What what is your intention with this? Like, what is it you want to accomplish?
Well, I just want to get it out there to the younger people and people who currently have psychosis or borderline personality disorder or depression or whatever, that and they're smoking weed, that you can get off of it, and that you can get better, and that life just is more than just weed. You know what I mean?
Um, thank you. I want to ask you this question because it's really important to me that I do ask. You said you are using still marijuana to cope with your anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, any plan of just completely
Yep.
giving it up and finding other ways to cope?
Yep. I bought 2 grams the other day, and I gave away
I
all
love,
my
I
bonds.
love you, Zoe. You're so sweet and you're so honest. I just love you. Okay, tell me.
And I gave away all my bongs, my pipes, my ashtray, my trays, my grinder, my hash press, my lighters, everything. I gave them all away. except for one bong, which I'm giving away once these 2 grams are done. And then that's when I plan on stopping it.
You know, something happened that this just reminds me, because I used to play these games with myself, right? But once this is done, I'm done. I said that a lot, Zoe, and you tell me if what you think of this. The day I start, the day back in October of 2018, when I decided to quit for good. I made a pact. I made a commitment to not just to myself, but a whole bunch of other people who I knew would keep me accountable. And that was regardless of whether I still had any pot or not. It's because it wasn't a question of, oh, what, this is going to go to waste. No, that to me, I made my decision that day, and I promised myself that I was going to do this, and I was going to keep my commitment to me, because I was no longer going to live this life. And so I did, and I've never gone back. I came home and I got rid of the pot. So I can't remember what I did with it. I gave it away, or I can't remember what I did with it. But that was the decision I made. What would stop you from buying more pot?
I'd say the fact that I'm trying to better myself and I'm trying to get a job and going back to college, and I just don't want to go down that path again, that where I had no motivation, I couldn't do anything, and all I wanted was that bong. That's all I could think about, and I'd constantly go out for hits.
You have a lot of my respect, Zoe. Last year you were here and you talked about this book that you were a part of.
Yes.
Called Brainstorm Revolution.
Mhm.
And in that book you had co-authored, and you had a chapter in that book. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to tell you that what you did in that book impacted other people, but I'm pretty sure that it has. When you were here on this talk last year, you impacted a whole bunch of people. You're here today, you're impacting a lot of people. There are parents watching this show who know exactly what you're talking about because they have kids struggling right now. So I want you to talk to these parents. How
Okay.
can they support their kids, their sons, their daughters, if they are going through the same thing? And how can they support them so that these young people could find hope and they live on and have better lives?
I'd say just talk to them, be honest with them about how you're feeling. Don't make them feel guilty though, but make sure that you get your point across, that like you are worried about them, and like tell them the statistics and everything about how marijuana affects the mental health.
Thank you. A couple of years ago, this was when those, the vapes that,
Yeah.
yeah. So they were like really popular. My son, who was probably 15 or 16 at the time, came to me and said he wants to get a vape. I said, why? He said, oh, it's because, they're cool. Everybody else has them. And there's, they're not, there's, it's not like smoking, mom. This is just a natural vape.
Yeah.
So when you say be honest with them and show them statistics, I said, okay, so let's go find some information. So we went online and we looked on a website, and we checked, and there was so much information, and there was a lot of statistics saying that people who vape are going to turn to cigarettes later, and they're going to want to smoke other things. And yes, they are addictive. So what you just said reminded me of that, because I could have snapped, I could have yelled, and I could have said, absolutely not, you are not allowed to do. But that would not have worked.
And it'd just make them want to do it more.
Exactly. You're so right. But instead, like showing them information and having those conversations on a mature level, and giving them the information they need, because nobody wants to harm themselves,
No.
right?
Right.
Zoey, I want to thank you, but I want to ask you, what's next for Zoey Raffay? I want to see you back here next year.
Well, I plan on coming out with the book in 2025. That book I was talking about last year?
Yes.
I still plan on coming out with it.
Okay, why 2025? That's such a long time from now. That's 3 years from now. Why not? What have you started?
I'm slowly working on it.
Okay, well, I say it doesn't take 3 years to do a book. You can do it in a shorter time, because I want to see you next year here, and I want you to be talking about that book.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot of messages for you in the chat. A lot of respect for you. A lot of shout outs to you and your courage and how brave you are. And this information that we brought today is very, very helpful to a lot of people. I know that it's going to make some change, and that's exactly what we want, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. What is your hope, Zoey? What is your hope? Tell me.
Well, my hope is that they do change the weed age to 25, 26. That's my hope, but I know that's probably not going to happen. But my hope is that people get the message and understand that weed does impact your mental health in a negative way if you use it for a long periods of time.
That is truly, that's what I want too. And there's a lot of people that are using cannabis for medical reasons.
Yeah.
And to help them with their pain. And there's a lot of cancer patients who are using cannabis benefits. So definitely, there's benefits, there's medical benefits to cannabis, but it's not to be used. It's not to be abused.
Yeah.
This is what I want. And I think the only way we can achieve that is if we are informed and we know the facts, and we look to the right resources, and make a decision based on information rather than emotion. And that's really, really important to me. Zoey, I'm going to actually put down this number on in the chat, because if you're struggling with marijuana addiction and depression and you need help, you can definitely use this resource. And I want to make sure that we give this to people so that it's available for you if you need it. So it's going to be scrolling at the bottom here. That number is 1-866-306-3026. If you're struggling with marijuana use and depression, please call that number. If you need more information, there are plenty of resources online. Just make sure that you go to the right place and get the right resource. Some of the resources are Canadian Mental Health Association. Another place is CMHA. CAMH, the hospital, and they have a site, and there's a lot of information on there. If you are thinking of suicide, please call this number 1-833-456-4566. Your life is worth so much. Zoey, what would you say to someone who wants to take their own life?
I understand exactly what you're going through and the thought process of what you're going through. But in the end, it's not worth it because you have a whole life ahead of you. And like, recovery is possible because I've done it myself with an eating disorder, with, suicidal thoughts. I've done it myself. So recovery is possible. It may take medication. It may take some work. It will take a lot of work, like DBT or whatnot, CBT, whichever one works for you. But in the end, your life is worth it. And
Great.
You don't want to throw it away.
It's a great message. You are so valuable, Zoey Raffay. You are needed in this world, young lady. You better stick around, and because I want to see you next year here, and I want to hear all these fantastic things you're doing and how you're impacting the world. Okay, thank you for being here today, Zoey. Thank you so much.
Well,
I
thank
really
you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Of course. Any brave young lady who's willing to share their experience from the heart and be so honest and so vulnerable is always welcome on Dela's Voice. Thank you so much.
No
Um,
problem.
for everyone who's been watching today, I want to thank you for spending this past hour with us, and I hope you took some inspiration from this, some information, and I hope that this can benefit either yourself or someone else that's that you know in your life that needs this. And the only way we can help one another is by sharing our own stories, our own experiences, and hoping that it would reach the right person at the right time. And that's all we can do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. If you are finding this program beneficial to yourself, please be generous and share it with others. Once again, this has been Dela's Voice, sparking your soul. Dela's Voice has been made possible by the generosity of sponsors like you.